Hi everyone. So this current stream is meant to be the one of Student Gaidar pre-conference events. So we're going to discuss how social life is affected by global processes of digitalization right now and what social science have to say today. So let me introduce the participants of the session. Professor Irina Soshina, Assistant Professor of Institute of Business Studies of RANEPA, Creative Director and the author of the idea of the academic student conference called Student Gaidar, Professor Victor Vakhshtayn, the Dean of the Department of Social Sciences of the Moscow School of Social and Economic Sciences, known as Shaninka. Also the Dean of Sociology and Philosophy Department of Institute for Social Sciences, RANEPA, and the main editor of academic journal, Sociology of Power. So, and me, Elizaveta Alenikova, coordinator of the conference. I'm sort of the liaison. My role is to bring together experts, students, and organizing committee. So, Victor, we are very grateful that you have found time today and opportunity to join us.
Thank you for invitation.
Thank you. So thank you for your precious time. We really appreciate it. So, and I find it really important that students and experts join peer partnership. So that's why it's really, really important to have a stream like this today. So let's get started. So I hope, if you don't mind, that we address each other by our first names for simplicity. So, okay, the first question. Victor, how does digitalization affect the concept of social mobility?
Let's start with the very concept of digitalization, because when we're trying to understand what actually does it mean, we figure out that it means or too many things or too few. The problem with digitalization that using this concept in our everyday conversations, we usually mean something that is online. So, for example, we are talking online now, and that's a definitely symptom of digital transformation of society or something like this. Also, the other problem with this concept is that it implies a very linear idea of social progress, something like digital transformation. We were in dark pre-digital ages, and now we are going forward to some brilliant digital times that will happen in the future. It's also something absolutely wrong. That's why probably the very concept of digitalization is a shallow and empty one, and it's gonna die very soon. 10 years ago, people, when they were using this idea of digitalization, it somehow reflected their feeling of this kind of new, brave online world. Not anymore, because now we have to talk separately about internet activities, online activities, and other forms of technological mediatization. So for sociology, there is no such thing as digitalization in general. There is something called technological mediatization, when technology is becoming something between us and make our conversation, for example, possible, or our presence somewhere possible. And giving this kind of conceptualization, trying to conceptualize what do we actually mean by using this word, I would define two specific features, differentia specifica. First is that there is some kind of technological mediator, your smartphone or laptop, or CCTV camera or something like this. Something is in between. And the second is a lack of physical presence. So digitalization is another word to say that I'm no longer physically there. So it's something that substitutes your physical absence in one place by using this technological mediator. So as soon as we figure out what do we actually mean by digitalization and how to make this word meaningful again, or just leave it maybe, if it doesn't reflect anything anymore, we can make a next step and ask ourselves what social mobility is about. According to classics of social theory, There are two different types of social mobility. One is about horizontal social mobility. When you're moving to Moscow physically, for example, to get education in RANEPA, or when you are going abroad physically to find a better job in the academic world. So this is about horizontal mobility. Peter Sorokin, who introduced this distinction, he also believed that there is some correlation between moving physically in space and moving vertically in a social structure. So vertical social mobility is about gaining more status, more money, better social position in the world. So you're moving forward in physical space to get higher in the social space. That's how it used to be for a very long time. How actually this idea of technological mediation or digitalization affects our ways of social mobility. In 1991, the book called The Death of Distance was published by Francine Cairncross, I guess. Yeah, she was an economist, and she believed, and actually it was 30 years ago, right, that as more digital devices will surround us in our everyday life, the less our need for physical travel will be, which means that internet's supposed to kill horizontal social mobility. It didn't work out. It didn't happen until last year. So all those 30 years of digitalization didn't affect our horizontal mobility at all, but 1 year of pandemic changed everything dramatically in terms of staying in Moscow during lockdown. A lot of students, not only in RANEPA or Higher School of Economics or MSSES, but many other Moscow universities, they preferred to go back to their native towns and cities, not to pay high rent, living in Moscow, studying at Zoom, right? So only digitalization plus pandemic lockdown working together brought social mobility back. I mean, back in times.
I see.
So that's a first effect that we can see, that not only one component, not only one phenomena, which is technological mediatization, but two of them, social restrictions as well. They work together. So maybe in the next few years, finally the prophecy of Francis Cairncross will become true, and the distance will die finally, but not only because of digitalization, but also because of pandemic fears and threats. Talking about vertical social mobility, yes, actually, many digital tools somehow open up new social lifts, new social paths. For example, now you can use your digital activities, online activities, in order to make new type of capital, not only economic capital, social capital, but new kind of digital capital. How many people you have in your followers, friends, and social network, how much attention you can draw to your activity. That's another type of capital that actually somehow we still don't know how to measure. We live in economics of attention. We live in a world where attention is a main currency in human interaction. But we still don't know how to measure this attention. And this attention exists solely because of digital activities. So yes, but that's not something that is dramatically changing social structure itself. It's something that adds, that brings one more dimension, new dimension of this social structure. Sometimes people now can convert one type of capital in another. For example, you can convert your media capital, your YouTube capital, your Facebook capital into money or into social ties. But those points of conversion are not quite clear, and the rate of conversion is also not quite clear. So it's another new interesting topic, but I wouldn't say that digital transformation changed everything. No.
But how this change, anyway, affects functioning of social institutions? How do you think?
In general, it doesn't, because when you say change now, you mean dramatic change, something totally new, absolutely upside down, tectonic shift. No, it's not like this.
Any change. So it's not dramatic right now.
The problem with the word change here, you see, change is another way to say today is not like yesterday. It's meaningless. We can say it about every day of our life. Today is not like yesterday, and that's it. How is what is the difference between today and yesterday?
How to measure it.
So when you say change is just another way to say something is different. We don't know what exactly, but probably it's because of digital transformation. A lot of changes you can see. For example, you can see new social paths, new social lifts, new social mechanisms for climbing up the pyramid of social structure. But you also can see, for example, that much less resources you have for that. When you are going back to your city because you cannot afford to stay in Moscow during pandemic, you are losing resources. You have new ways, but you are losing resources to use them. So a lot of many changes, a lot of invisible changes that we sometimes cannot even reflect upon yet. We can focus on some of them, but we shouldn't right now as scholars, as sociologists, as researchers, come out with some kind of general descriptions, like generalization, like jumping up to conclusions, something like, so as you see now, we are all living in our smartphones. It means we live in a totally different world. No, it's not going to work like this. So, for example, if you are interested in this, there is a paper published recently in a journal called Sociologica. It's an international journal, mainly about social theory and ethnography, and two German sociologists from Bielefeld, Tobias Veron and Franz Ringel, I guess he's the co-author. They're trying to produce new way of thinking about changes in so everyday social practices. What is happening during last year that we don't see, we don't pay attention to, but already is visible and reproducible. For example, now when you're catching a taxi, you're sitting not next to the driver, you're sitting backseat, you're taking backseat. Even if before you used to take the first seat, now you prefer to take backseat. So this is change. That is something that we don't see. It is something that is really changed, but we didn't notice when it happened. It happened only a few months ago, actually. But we already believe that we always used to do this. We don't see the moment of change. It's always in the past. For example, today it's hard to believe that someone can smoke in a cafe. Even if I will try to smoke in a cafe, I will physically feel really wrong. Like all my body will somehow deny the very opportunity of doing it. But only a few years ago, it was a normal everyday practice. We don't remember it anymore. For us, this normality is something that always been that way, because this is called invisibilization. The same happened with the digital devices. Do you remember exactly when messengers became your main way of communication with the world? It happened just a few years ago. It's a very recent thing, but you already believe that it happened a long time ago, that we always lived with messengers, like we always lived with smartphones. That's about this change. Everything that happens in our everyday life is changing very slowly and somehow unnoticeably. So this invisibilization of everyday change is something what microsociology studies. Sorry.
So as far as I understood, social relations are changing. So
you don't need sociology to say that, right?
No.
You know it. Social relations are changing. Yes, they do.
Yeah, exactly.
They have been always changing, by the way.
But they have been always changing.
Dynamic, moving some way in some unknown direction, right? Yeah, but messengers have become an important part of life long ago. I remember when my son first married, and it was 2004, and I discovered, to my disappointment, I then judged it as being impolite or whatever. They were always in their then simple telephones looking for something From time to time, they were taking a look. I couldn't understand what they were doing. I just couldn't understand. And I thought it was distracting their attention from other people in the room, from the child, from me, from whatever. But then our students, approximately then time 2005 or 2006, they were always doing the same. And I asked them then, how many messages are you receiving and sending every day? It occurred to me that it was a lot. And they puzzled for something, but then they did some calculations, and they said when they returned with the answer that it was, even then, 15 years ago, it was 3,000 messages per day. I was really shocked.
And
So even
this everyday change. For example, there is a great paper by Irving Goffman, a microsociologist, who in 1974, I guess, or 76, I don't remember exactly. He was giving a public lecture in the University of Michigan. And he was giving public lecture about public lecture, how this frame of communication is organized, what actually the social structure of public lecture. And when you're reading it now, it's translated into Russian. You're really jealous and envious because he can analyze it as a single frame of communication because people are paying attention to what he's saying. And this is ongoing activity of interaction here and now. If you try to analyze the structure of the lecture today, you will see layers of attention of people oscillating between their smartphones, lecturer's style, going back, sometimes checking what he's saying on the internet, sometimes sending and receiving messages, sometimes just checking up their Instagram and Facebook pages, and so on and so on and so on. So there is no such thing as a single frame of interaction anymore, like our interaction now, because it is technically mediated. We have Zoom, and but we are still involved in the same conversation. In a lecture, you cannot say anymore that for every student it's the same lecture, because every student is choosing their own regime of involvement. And that's a very serious change in our everyday life that was brought in by miniaturization of digital devices. They are becoming handy, they are becoming invisible because you don't even pay attention when you are doing it. It's now a reflex. It's something that you're used to. But that's change. That's how we can consider the difference between change and consequence. Change is something what is going on right now and you don't notice it. Consequence is some kind of major social shifts that can be observed in the future. And we can attribute somehow retrospectively, post factum, that consequence to its cause. But that's why we should probably talk not about changes that are happening all the time, but about consequences. The consequences is about different thing, right? You see the difference here.
So changes are going on, are invisible, but then it's a qualitative shift.
Yeah, when and then we can discuss how it happens. For example, is it cumulative process when a lot of small changes somehow are summing up into bigger, major technological, for example, shift? Or there is always something breaking, one crucial change that is changing everything. Or we have a lot of different changes that somehow contradict to each other. And this process of social amortization is going on. When technology is trying to reshape your everyday practice, but your everyday practice is reshaping technology itself. So there are two different theories here. One is a theory of intervention, technological intervention. New breakthrough technology, new app in your smartphone will change everything. Yandex Taxi, for example, like your everyday life will never be the same. It's a theory of intervention. Theory of domestication is based on axiomatic assumption that any technological device is kind of wild animal, and you need somehow to reshape it, to adapt it, to build it into your social life, using it totally not in a way it was supposed to be used. And that's kind of this resistance and resilience of everyday social world is reshaping technology itself. And they are contradicting theories, right? They compete, trying to bring more and more empirical data to prove that no, it's about intervention, or no, it's about domestication.
But it looks like it's these minor changes. They do not only contradict with each other, that they also contribute to each other.
Yes. For example, pandemic practices and digital practices, they contribute to each other. They work together.
Mm-hmm.
But we have also a lot of political practices that are opposed to technology and so on. So there are very many vectors of change, and sometimes they can sum up in zero, you know, they can
annihilate.
Annihilate, exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
So one more question about business. So because it is one of the main topics of our conference, Student Gaidar. So Victor, is there anything business should take into account about digitalized human behavior because of changing routine that you said before?
That's the problem, because for social scientists, business can be only an object of research. We don't give recommendations to business. We don't care about business. It's a separate system, right? For business education, it's a main system, but I'm not in a business education, so I don't care. It's not my cup of tea. But talking about what can be interesting in the field of social sciences of technology, STS, right? It's called Sociology of Technology and Science. Studies of science and technology is different. So there are a few interesting topics that can be taken into consideration here. First is the problem of trust, which is one of the key topics in social studies of science and technology. And for example, in our research that we are running in Russia last 8 years, it's called Eurobarometer in Russia. We measure perception of technology and technological changes or shifts or consequences in different social groups. And what we see is that after 2013, 2014, there was a growth of technological optimism. Like incredible technological optimism about possibilities and consequences of technological changes. So Russia was #1 techno-optimistic country among all countries in Eurobarometer. And if United States, the USA at that time, was quite technophobic, Europe generally was quite technoskeptic. Not technophobic, but technoskeptic. Except of countries of former Soviet Union, like Lithuania, Latvia. They were quite optimistic, by the way. And in Russia, more than half of the population believed that in the nearest future, technological progress will solve all humanity's problems, including problems of hunger, war, and so on. So that was like a really, really strong attitude, belief in the possibilities of technologies and technological changes. And the fraction of technophobes was very small, 8%. Only 8% of Russian population believe that technology actually can bring new threats and is a source of danger, and not actually only this kind of future liberation of humanity. And the reason for this kind of technological optimism and trust in technology, in digital we trust, was not some kind of, I don't know, like legacy of Soviet utopianism and technological, techno-centered education in Soviet time. But the reason was a huge mistrust in Russia, social institutions. For example, we see from 2014 to 2018, the growth of people who believe that robotic judge is a good idea, that automation of judicial system is something that really should happen. And proportionally, we see a correlation that the same amount of people, were disappointed in Russian judicial system. So they believe that robot judge is a good thing, not because they believe it in technology, but also because they don't believe in Russian courts and Russian judicial system. The same with how to say, robotic surgeon, robot chirurg, how to translate it?
Distant surgery.
Yeah, no, but it's not distant surgery. Distant surgery is something already happening everywhere.
It's human.
Like telesurgery. Yeah.
Yeah, like non-human surgery, like when robot is a surgeon, right? So people believe that it's a great idea, but not because they believe in technology in a utopian way, but also because they don't believe in Russian medical system, healthcare system. That's it. Like, have you seen those surgeons? I prefer a robotic one. That's how it works. So that was a kind of curve. You could see how it works. When people start to trust in digital devices, they start to trust in technological mediatization. They trust in technological progress because they're disappointed in what's going on around them. But in 2012, in 2020, situation has changed, and people do not see anymore technology as some kind of substitute for ineffective, efficient social and political institutions. They see them now as instrument of those ineffective and inefficient social institutions, instrument of control, instrument of oppression. And now technophobic fraction, that part of population that believe that technology is something wrong, is 24%, from 8 to 24 in 2 years. So that's interesting for us because it's about the question of trust. It's about question of perception of technological progress. And many other interesting topics, including mistrust in Russia, connected with this topic as well. But what is also interesting that 2 years ago, in parallel to these huge studies, cross-cultural research, we also did a small research on Russian venture market, trying to see how all those people who are investing money in technological growth, how they perceive technology and technological growth. And the funniest part, that Russian venture investors, and to less extent startuppers, they were much more technophobic than Russian population in general. So they were investing money in technology, saying at the same time that technology will kill humanity at the end. So as this kind of techno-fatalism, that's what I really enjoyed in this part of the project. Now I have to smoke, sorry. I feel like
that's okay.
You're welcome.
That's okay.
Please do. Yeah, we will go through this. Yeah, but probably because it was they were in the Soviet Union, and later on they were progressists. Yeah, and so it was inertia of believing in progress.
It's very interesting because what you are saying, it's a very good characteristic of startuppers. Young guys, not always young, by the way, it's a huge stereotype that startupper is
no, they are not
a young guy, right? Russian startuppers are 40 plus, so with a lot of experience behind their back before they move there. But startuppers usually are very progressivists, and startuppers, they believe that what they're doing, they're investing in future by producing new technology. And for them, it's interesting that future and technology are synonyms, and they're also synonyms to everything what is good about this world. And what is the antonym for future and technology? It's a past and real estate. For example, if you're investing in real estate, you're on the side of evil. You're Darth Vader. And if you're investing in technology, you're Luke Skywalker. You're bringing peace and something. And this very binary Weltanschauung, worldview, mindset is very, very somehow to say implicit and something that is not that is something taken for granted for people who are doing their startups, but investors. People who invest in their startups, actually key figures, business angels and so on, like major players in this market, they're absolutely not techno-optimistics. Sometimes they're technophobic, they're very techno-skeptical. But for them, technology is not about bringing good into the world.
But bringing profit.
It's bringing profit.
It's cynical approach. Which
The
is
worst what can ever happen to any startup is a cynical startupper and very techno-optimistic investor.
Mm-hmm.
But vice versa is a good recipe for success.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you very much. It was the last question, I guess, but I have a feeling that Irina is definitely has something to us. So, Irina?
Really, probably. I also know, Victor, that you, apart from what we tackled upon today, that your professional interests lie somewhere in the area of the relationship between social life, how sociology studies the power, sociology of power.
Sociology of Power is just a title of our journal. It's not actually
of your journal, of which you are an editor, of scientific editor. It's a scientific journal, right? That's why probably we very appreciate what you have done for us today. But probably, if you have time, we'll probably discuss this aspect of new changes, because now the world is dominated by ideas and powers, the different political system, and there is political power and non-political power running the world. They saturate ideas from the environment, and somehow it is, make them to reign and to exercise power over people. So can we one day discuss?
Why not? Maybe in the future we will finish huge research this year. I hope we will finish about power relations as well, about trust in political institutions and trust in social movements, and we will see how this balance between political and social.
Balance between all this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, very interesting. So thank you. Have a nice day.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.